The VT-49 Decimator is a high-cost Imperial large ship, and if you're going to include one in a standard 100-point game, it's going to fill half or more of your total build. Although Decimators can carry 3 crew, 1 bomb, 1 torpedo, a title, a modification, and possibly an elite talent, you won't want to fully load it up if you still want to get 2 or 3 more ships into your squadron. Hands down, my favorite Decimator pilot is Captain Oicunn. He has a pilot skill of 4 and costs 42 points. His ability lets him deal damage to any enemy ship that he runs into during the activation phase. His relatively low pilot skill means that he'll move before any enemy ship with a skill of 5 or more. So let's look at outfitting Oicunn with upgrades that will take advantage of this ability. Let's start with the Decimator title, Dauntless. This card comes in the Decimator expansion and costs 2 points. It lets you take a free action when you end your maneuver overlapping another ship, and then take a stress token. Since Oicunn wants to run into enemy ships, this will let him do that and still take his action. Before I talk about the elite talent upgrade for this build, I have to give a shout out to Expose. The Decimator is probably the single best ship in the game right now for this card. It lets you use an action to raise your attack by 1 and decrease your agility by 1 for the combat phase. Since Decimators have an agility value of 0, this is a win-win upgrade, letting the ship attack with 4 dice. And because the Decimator has a turret primary weapon, that attack can target anything in a 360-degree arc. However, because Expose uses your action, you won't be able to benefit from target lock or focus actions on the same turn to really make those 4 dice attack rolls hurt. Bringing along another ship that can pass target lock or focus tokens to the Decimator is a good idea. A wingman with the squad leader elite talent or Captain Jendin's shuttle are good choices for this purpose. Now, even though I like Expose on the Decimator, for this build, I'm sticking to things that have synergy specifically with Captain Oicunn's ability. So we're going to use Intimidation, a 2-point card that comes with the Decimator expansion. This card reduces the agility value of any enemy ship touching your ship. Of course, you won't be able to fire on enemy ships you're touching, but Oicunn's squad mates certainly can. Now let's put some crew on board. I like the 2-point Saboteur, which comes in the HWK 290 expansion. This lets you take an action to choose an enemy ship at range 1 and flip one of its damage cards, and then resolve the critical hit effect. This guy has nice synergy with Oicunn since he wants to be in close anyway. Rounding out the crew upgrades, Mara Jade costs 3 points, and is also included in the Decimator expansion. At the end of combat, any enemy ship at range 1 that doesn't have stress tokens gets one. Before I move on from talking about crew upgrades, I want to talk about Darth Vader. You might recall that the crew version of Vader works great on Imperial shuttles, but he's also fantastic on Decimators, just not on this build. If you want Vader on a Decimator, you probably want to take Expose and stay out of the thick of battle, taking shots and then adding critical hits at the cost of 2 damage to your own ship. But because Captain Oicunn wants to get right into the middle of the battle, he's going to be taking enough damage without having to worry about crazy Vader smashing things on board. Finally, let's strap on the 1-point Tactical Jammer modification to finish this build. Now, I think this is an absolutely amazing card, and it also comes in the Decimator expansion. It turns your large ship into an obstacle for enemy ships when checking for line of sight. If they have to fire through the Decimator, their targets will get an extra defense die. For 1 point, this card is really fantastic. And on Captain Oicunn, who needs to be front and center as much as possible, you can keep the rest of his squad behind him and make them tougher to hit. So there's my take on Captain Oicunn's Decimator. Coming in at 52 points, this build doesn't leave a whole lot of room for squad mates, although you can bring 4 Academy-type pilot TIE fighters as a backup. With this build, you've got a ship that can deal damage by slamming into enemy ships, lower their agility, can still take an action, boosts the defense of friendly ships behind it, hands out stress, and flips damage cards on nearby enemy ships. Basically, it's as if the Imperial engineers harnessed pure chaos and forced it into a gray metal shell. The biggest drawback here, as it will be with almost any Decimator build, is that with 0 agility, you'll be soaking up damage pretty fast. But with a total of 16 hits required to destroy it, as long as the Decimator can stick around for several rounds, you should be in pretty good shape. Thanks for watching the Cardboard Dungeon. If there's a ship or pilot you want to see appear in a future episode of this series, please let me know and I will make it happen. It might take a while, but I'll get to it at some point. See you next time.